Hey everybody, I got some sad news for you. Welcome to Church History for Chumps. That's all I got.
What?
Hey, I was reading the news today. I saw on the news that there was a revival at a church in California. It's called 11th Street Baptist.
Oh my, stop.
Upland.
Wait, is this a real thing?
Now they're gonna find me. Oh,
there's-
thanks.
Is that
Wait,
too
what's
much,
going
Is that
on?
too much docs? Is that too much docs?
I don't care.
Wait, is that your church, Taylor?
That's my church.
Oh, so
You
there's
didn't
no
even
revival.
click
We just got
on it.
excited for nothing.
You didn't even click on it.
Well, I
sent
thought
them-
you were actually going to talk about sad news. I was like, man.
Hey, I watched as much as I could squeeze in on a Sunday. I wish I could have
wow.
watched your whole sermon. I'm going to try to catch it tomorrow.
Thanks, man.
Listener, if you want to hear Taylor preach a sermon,
Oh,
you can go look it up.
It was a hard passage. Philippians 1:21. Trying to tell a room full of Westerners in Southern California that, guys, death is not a threat to the gospel. Also, if you die, Christ will use that.
That's pretty good.
The hard
That's
teaching.
good.
The hard teaching.
Well, if you guys want to listen to Thomas's sermon from today, just hit up lakewoodchurch.com.
Amen.
Yeah.
He has a stage name of Joel, but that's Tommy. Trust us.
That's him. Yep. Bringing
Also
that
wear-
gospel.
Did you say lakewoodchurch.gov?
No, I said .com.
Oh.
I just preach in a state church that's prosperity gospel.
Dude, that's so funny. This is it. You did it. Christian nationalism worked, man. You got a prosperity gospel church with a .gov domain name.
Dude, are there any state-run churches that are prosperity gospel? Because if not, man.
They are
first off,
missing
what is
out
a
on an
state-run
opportunity.
church? It's got to be like is that there's like the churches in China or something?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If they were, they must just like really harp on paying your taxes. They're like, give unto Caesar, wink, wink.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, boys, how we doing?
Doing good.
Tommy
Yeah.
doxed me. I preached today, but I came home
Mm-hmm.
and took a nap.
Do you feel like just what's the feeling you guys have after you preach a sermon that you were just like either really stressed about or just like took a ton of time to work? Like, what's that feeling of relief that you guys experience?
There's
or is
no
it just kind of
relief.
like on to the next thing? No relief.
No, you're just thinking, man, that probably was terrible.
Oh gosh.
I
I
don't
think that's a newbie thing. I don't feel like I experienced that past like my first 6 months of preaching.
I don't. This has always been the case for me. I don't really get super down in the dumps after a sermon because it's like it's done. Like,
Yeah.
and I've preached enough stinkers that people loved and ones that I thought were bangers that people didn't say anything about. That I've just, I think, learned to just kind of give it over to God and just. I definitely I put so much mental energy into it. Mental and emotional energy that by like Sunday night, like Mondays are my day off, and I definitely like am glad to be through the weekend. I love preaching, but I'm glad to be through, preaching. For me, it's the lead up to it that I get really in my head.
Yeah. I think if I look at like my Apple Watch like 10 minutes before a sermon, it's just like my heart rate's just like,
Oh, really?
Dude, I had a heart event last year before preaching.
really?
I legit like nurses in our congregation like after service like made me go to the hospital. Like that's how high my heart rate was.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh. What were
See,
you
I don't-
preaching on, dog?
I don't even remember. It was just kind of a fluke. Basically had a panic attack, which I'd never had one before.
Dang.
And it actually was a good experience for me because I minister to people who have panic disorders, and so it was helpful for me to experience that and know what that's like and how that felt.
Yeah.
Dang. I don't get nervous leading up to it.
Do you get nervous during?
Nope.
To just never feel it at all. Well, I mean, you've also done a ton of worship leading, so you're kind of used to
with
being
our powers combined.
I know, with our powers combined, we can be the. Yeah, I typically I'm like, as you guys probably have gathered, I can struggle with arrogance and what? No. So like typically I am like, I get off the stage and I'm like, all right, that was good. But this last one, I think what happened was I've gotten enough feedback, critical feedback from people that are really good, that now I know, like, oh, I have a long way to go. So I have people that are going to rip it to shreds.
I heard, this might be too nerdy for our listeners, but I heard one time, I think it was Tim Keller, said something like, you got to preach something like 200 or 300 sermons before you find your own pastoral voice. But before that, it's all basically parroting other people, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's how we all learn. But it takes that much time for you to like really be in your bag.
Well, dude, you think like to be a professional musician, you got to put in your 10,000 hours. So it's like, if you're going to be a professional, I mean, and preachers aren't necessarily professional speakers, because there are some very seasoned preachers who have done some beautiful things for the gospel, but maybe not the greatest speakers in the world. But
I think a big part of it is actually becoming a better writer, which takes years of practice, and like reading needs to go alongside that. And it's just like, that's the real art, I think, especially like if you want to be a good communicator, you are a good writer.
Yeah, I like that. I almost wonder, like, I feel like I did a lot. I used to write my sermons almost word for word. Like, I would transcribe them, and those were the sermons that I always did the best. But I also felt like when I was so word for word with my transcript, it felt not personal. It felt a little bit more robotic. But now when I write, like, and I actually just write things to be read, it feels way more, it feels like I'm using those skill sets the way that I was supposed to. But I don't know. I miss preaching sometimes, dude.
You should shout out your Substack if you want.
Big Dogs Go to Heaven. Substack.com. It is
what it's
dude,
called.
I love it, bro. It's fun. What's yours, Tay? Do you even use yours anymore with your AI gorillas?
No, I want to.
Come on, man.
No, here's the deal. I needed to grow. I needed to learn more and evolve before I got back into the writing.
No, dude, the writing is the process.
Yes,
how you evolve.
Yes, but you don't need to publish it for the world to see.
No one's reading it.
You don't need to act like you have. Thank you. You don't need to act like you have something to say when you don't. I will plug mine. It's good. It's got a good name.
What is it?
Oh, fine.
Oh,
it's Ecclesiastical Eccentricities.
You might need to put a spelling guide down in the comment section.
Yes. Yeah.
And then Tommy, yours is Pastor's P.O. Box.
That's correct. Yep.
GG. Yeah.
And I was just gonna shout yours out, John. I like your Substack because it's I think it's almost all of it is reflections you have from your work as a hospice chaplain in a very poetic form. And I always get a little warm fuzzy in my brain when I wake up and I see in my email, Big Dogs Go to Heaven.
Thanks, Aww. G. Yeah, it's been nice. It's been yeah, dude, like it's I'll just make this like reflection real quick and then we'll get into the brass tacks, but like something that I've noticed a lot transitioning out of pastoral ministry and into hospice chaplaincy, the biggest adjustment is that pastoral ministry is all about the long game. Like you're just putting roots down. You're going to be with this community for a long period of time. You get to know people, walk with these people as they get married, as they go through stuff, as kids grow up, all that. And then hospice chaplaincy is like, it's just a blink of an eye. It's such a flash. And so I think writing for me became this way to kind of like memorialize a little bit, like not just memorialize my experiences, but even in a way kind of memorialize the people. Cause it's just like, man, it sucks that like I've seen this crucial final moment of this person's life, and so rarely will they stick around in my memory. Not because they're not great, but just because, I'm going to have 10 more tomorrow. So, yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that, man. Thanks, G. I appreciate you.
I'll say one more. I think if a day ever comes again in the future where you receive a pastoral call, I think that your work at these years as a hospice chaplain will benefit. One of my favorite quotes is from Richard Baxter, and it says, he said, "Preach as a dying man to dying men." And I think that so much in the American church is like we have an issue in America where we do not reflect well on the fact that we're all going to die, and we avoid death. I was in a couple classes with a pastor teaching a whole class on death.
Wow.
And this guy, even teaching the class, admitted that he had never seen a dead body.
Wow, dude.
That's just the reality for so many people. And so yeah, I think every pastor should probably spend some time as a hospice chaplain.
Yeah. One of my favorite, your quote reminded me of a quote that I also love, which I think is Eugene Peterson. He said in his memoir, which is really good, he said, a pastor should strive to do two things for his people. Teach them how to pray and teach them how to die a good death. And I just thought prayer is like the breath of a living person, the breath of life. Like to pray is to live, and then to die is to succumb to what all of us do. So if a pastor can teach people to do those two things, then you've basically covered everything. But yeah, I think about that a lot. Yeah. All right. Well, dudes, what are we on today? Taylor, are you the ringleader?
I'm the ringleader.
All right. Lead away, sir.
So, Tommy, John, listeners, You guys seen the TikTok or Instagram reel sound that's like the raise your hand?
Nah, dude. Nah.
No, I like to read. I spend too much time in contemplation for those memes.
Yeah, meditating. Anyway, raise your hand if you've ever heard the argument that the resurrection of Jesus is more credible because the apostles were willing to die for it.
Yep. I've raised my hand.
You've raised your hand.
I've heard that. I've made it. I don't know if I should have now. I'm nervous.
Well, I mean, that's really the question, isn't it? Did the apostles actually die martyred deaths?
11 of them.
Yeah, did they? Wait,
no, 12, because Paul was an apostle.
Yeah, well, maybe. That's what we're kind of going to launch into a Taylor series.
Taylor's on his, he's doing his Bart Ehrman routine right now.
Oh, don't. No. If you don't know who Bart Ehrman is, he's a...
Don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it. Yeah, consider yourself lucky.
Yes.
And then...
we're going to... typically what we do, dear listener, a peek behind the curtain, is we kind of just chit-chat and figure out who wants to host what episode. But so I started... We were like, let's do an episode on the deaths of the apostles. And I started researching and I realized, oh my gosh, there's a lot here. So my next few Taylor drops, I'm going to explore the deaths of the apostles using Sean McDowell's The Fate of the Apostles as
great guy.
Yes, he's a great guy. If you don't watch his stuff, you should. He's the Sean McDowell.
Is that SAN or SH?
Scene. So Sean McDowell is professor of apologetics at Biola and did his dissertation at Southern Seminary, Southern Baptist, about 10 years ago on this very topic, the fate of the apostles. But in December of this year, he's actually republished the second edition of his book, and it's very, very good. So to go back to our original question, right? Our original question, was the argument for the resurrection, is it more credible because the apostles died? So We have Craig Keener in the Historical Jesus of the Gospel says, the disciples' testimony was not fabricated. Ancients also recognized that the willingness of people to die for their convictions verified at least the sincerity of their motives, arguing against fabrication. People, of course, die regularly for values that are false. They do not, however, ordinarily die voluntarily for what they believe is false. Intentional deception by the disciples is thus implausible. So you've got a ringleader like Keener chiming in saying, yeah, I think it makes the argument stronger. And then we'll go back in time. We'll go to Tertullian. This is against Marcion, book 4, chapter 5. Let us see what milk the Corinthians drank from Paul. To what rule of faith the Galatians were brought for correction. What the Philippians, the Thessalonians, the Ephesians, read by it. What utterance also the Romans give, so very near to the apostles, to whom Peter and Paul conjointly bequeathed the gospel, even sealed with their own blood. So this has been a talking point for Christians for a very, very long time. And essentially it goes, why would these guys who were following what they believe to be, the promised Messiah, if he did just get killed by the state and didn't resurrect, why did they not just move on with their lives? Instead, they dedicated their lives to his message and faced immense persecution, torture, and even death. But the question is, well, did they actually die? And that's the entire point of what we're going to be exploring. We're going to do a handful of apostles at a time. And you are held to my whims and lack of what's it called when you're impulsiveness. You're held to my impulsiveness.
It's impulsivity.
Is it really?
Where the whimsy at?
Where's the whimsy?
People commented on that like it was a joke. I wasn't joking. I mean, I was being.
I read that comment. They liked it.
Okay, all right.
The person who commented that really hit them deep somehow, but it did.
Because I was spitting, bro. I was cooking. Also, we should probably acknowledge, and I'm sorry, Taylor, for interrupting your really good intro. We got stomped for the battle royale.
Yeah, I know we did.
Thomas demolished us, and you know what? I think it's a big part is just Thomas has got that charm. Yeah, he's got the voice. He's easily the handsomest of the three of us. There's a reason he's got all these kids.
He's eloquent.
So
now you know the kind of emotion that I bring to a debate. So when we do another battle royale, I expect to have some contenders.
Yeah, well, now I know
I get it.
Now I know what I'm walking into. I did like your timestamp. The Taylor gets mad and says what he actually thinks.
I thought that was your best part. I was trying to highlight you.
I appreciate it.
Nobody really gave you any love for it, but we appreciate everyone who contributed and voted on that. Because really, what is a democracy without the voters? So if it wasn't for the 4 people who voted, then
guys, listeners, comment. You gotta comment. It helps boost the algorithm. I know we have a lot of people that are big fans. Do you want to see us blow up? You want to see us if we get to the point where we're getting booths at conferences, we'll take the OG fans out for dinner, and you will get to be one. I
want a sponsorship from Logos. Okay.
Oh man,
I want you guys to hear ads from Ken Ham's Ark Encounter before you press play on this episode. I want that ham money, bro.
Our main goal is to blow up and act like we don't know Ken Ham.
Bro, I want those green dollars and ham, bro. That's what I'm looking for.
All right, back to Taylor.
Anyways.
Comment, friends. Tell your friends. Comment. Okay, hey. So McDowell really leans into this idea of living memory, that was not his original idea, but there's the professor of exegesis of Holy Scripture at Oxford, Marcus Bachmuel, probably mispronounced it, but he has this idea of living memory when you're doing history, and McDowell summarizes it like this. First and second century writers emphasized that they were passing on a shared living memory of the apostles, which is to make a stronger claim than saying they were simply passing on a shared tradition or cultural memory. Instead, they believed they were transmitting personal memory of events that trace back to the apostles themselves. So this is going to be a key tool for verifying the claims that we're going to be discussing. So just like Tertullian claiming that Clement succeeded Peter hundreds of years after the fact, we are going to have to take our sources with a grain of salt, and we're going to have to really try to see what happened to the apostles. But before we begin, we have to I know, dude, I cannot talk right now. Just forget.
It's that you corrected yourself and then
did it again. I know. This is Peter and Linus all over again.
Could have been worse. Could have been
Buckle up, boys. Yeah. You know who hasn't misspoke? Stupid Tommy.
The winner of everything, bro.
He didn't win tonight. Well, he did, technically. Oh, another plug before we keep moving. Guys, on Friday, we're going to drop another Chump Talk, Trump Trivia.
It sounds like Trump Trivia.
I might have said Trump Trivia.
Trump Trivia.
Who's the greatest president America has ever seen? Better than maybe even
which
Abraham Lincoln
has had a steak brand.
Yeah. No, anyway, check out, you got to figure out who won, me or Tommy. Got to figure out who won, me or Tommy.
But really, if you listen, you'll be the winner.
Amen. All right. Before we begin, I said it right this time. We have to understand that this era, as we have already seen, we're looking at our first and second century kind of era in the podcast. It's difficult because we have very little sources, and it's difficult to sift between history and legend. Now, I do appreciate that we have a love for legends, don't we, boys?
Oh, yeah. I hate historical criticism, dude. It's my main op.
No, but we love the legends.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Like when, even when they make us laugh.
Like Wilberforce.
Like Ignatius being called, or one of the children that came to Jesus. Just making stuff up. But you know what? They're making stuff up poetically. So lastly, we have to remember that early Christian churches would benefit very greatly from claiming apostolic origins for their churches. You see, you tracking why we might have stuff that gets made up?
Yep.
Sure.
So they're making fun of me in chat. Before we forget,
it's like, you know, when what's his name, the Looney Tunes guy would be like, he would stutter on a word that you thought he was gonna say.
Porky Pig, you fool.
Okay, sorry, Disney adult. Before we
not even Disney's Warner Brothers. Oh my gosh!
Wow, gosh, this man was made for California. My gosh. All right, yeah. I mean, I'd always heard that the stories of the apostles' martyrdoms were, I don't know, possibly embellished, kind of tradition, not really historical. So yeah, I'm curious to kind of unpack this stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be really good. Okay, so as I said, you guys are up to my whims and my impulses. So we're starting with Simon the Zealot for no other reason than I picked a name on the list.
This guy's like the terrorist of the group, right?
Well, just pause.
The Zealots were. Yeah.
Maybe.
Did you say
maybe.
Pause? Oh, sorry, because you're going to get into it.
Yeah, okay. Maybe. Okay, so Simon, we don't know anything other than he's mentioned 4 times in the New Testament under the list of the apostles. Matthew has him in 10:4, Mark 3:18, Luke 6:15, and then he's in Luke also writes in Acts again in 1:13.
10:4?
At 10:4, Roger Dodger. No additional information is given about him. But if you watch The Chosen, then you'll know that his brother was actually the man at the pool of Bethsaida. So, fun fact.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But then to touch on your point, we're not even entirely sure if his nickname, the Zealot, is referring to the political activist group that started in AD 66 is when we have the earliest traces of that. Or if Simon was just a really passionate guy.
Maybe he was like a K-pop stan.
Yeah, he's zealous for K-pop.
Yeah.
Could I make a comment on that, Taylor?
No.
Okay.
No, please do.
I've always thought that if he was a part of the actual like political group, like the Zealots, that's a kind of an important piece of like what the gospel is doing, because the Zealots, they wanted to bring the kingdom by defeating the Romans. Like they thought that was like the barrier to getting the Messiah there, and then all of a sudden the Messiah pops up in the midst of them and brings one of them into his own fold.
Right.
Especially when you consider Matthew, the tax collector, who was like the absolute political opposite to Simon.
Yeah, you have two wide swings on the spectrum, right?
Mm-hmm.
You basically have like the government schmuck who's betrayed everybody that he knows and loves. Fed. Yeah, you got the Fed. Matt would work for the ATF.
Yeah. He'd kill your dog.
And then you have the Zealot who's like prepper extraordinaire, right?
Basically Mormon.
Maybe Antifa?
No, not Antifa.
I mean, he's like the counter
Branch
movement. Yeah. Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. He's with Dave Koresh, supposedly. But as I said, some historians argue that we're not even sure. I think it's Keener that actually says, like, we don't even know for sure if Zealot is referring to that. Okay. Dang. Do you guys know what traditions claimed about his martyrdom? Like what the typical story is?
I don't know.
I'm going to say thrown off the temple.
No. Well, he was killed in Persia, supposedly, for refusing to make refusing to make a sacrifice to the sun god.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
How was he killed?
I didn't get that. I didn't track that. I don't know if we even know how the method, but we do. We don't know much. Look, this is the whole point of this. So we're gonna look through some of the other.
It's like every apostle. He's like, we don't actually know.
We're not
no,
sure.
Look, we are going to make some claims at the end, but we just got to get to the end. So
okay.
So tradition claims he was killed in Persia, right? Didn't want to sacrifice to the sun god. But a variety of later legends arose about Simon the Zealot, some possibly containing a grain of truth. And others are entirely fictional. So here's a good one. One legend claims Simon was one of the shepherds visited by angels at Christ's birth.
He's like an old dude.
This guy was super old.
Yeah. So, in the Byzantine church, Simon is identified with Nathaniel, who's from Cana. And then we have a later tradition identifies Judas, son of James, and Simon the Zealot as the brothers of Jesus named Judas and Simon. So have you guys ever heard that some of the disciples were his apostles? You guys ever heard that?
Some of the disciples were his apostles?
Yeah, have you guys ever heard that one?
I'm not sure.
No, sorry. Some of the disciples were his brothers.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. I'm just batting 1,000.
Actually, no, I've never heard that.
No, I haven't either.
Okay.
I know he had an apostle named James, but I knew that James, his brother, was a different guy.
Yeah. So I've stumbled across that claim before, and I wonder if this is the tradition that it comes from.
Okay.
So, different traditions, East and West, they have separate summaries. There's many different stories, even within the two churches, that have him dying everywhere from Britain or Georgia all the way to this Persian account.
So I want to say there's something really, it's almost like endearing actually about this, that there's like all these different theories. And I'm not trying to trivialize this at all. And I think that my longstanding history here at CH4C is the guy who likes the traditional stories in church history will vindicate me here. But it's like, it kind of reminds me of like how we have like the whole like Marvel cinematic universe and like all of the different like comics that there's all these different storylines and backstories for all of these heroes and villains, and it's like in the middle of history, like the coolest thing ever happened. Like God became a man, and there's this, all these characters are mixed up in it, and it's like the successive generations of the church just had a field day trying to connect all of the dots, which is really, I think it's cool.
Yeah. John Simon and I talked about that, I think, in one of the episodes you weren't there, like the crossover event.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How you kind of see all that. I like it too. I think there's some nefarious reasoning, because if us three had a church that we wanted to make more legitimate and we knew that very little was written about Simon, we could be like, yeah, Simon came here.
He died here, actually.
Yeah, he actually died here. He died here. The same guys that are mean to us where they killed Simon.
We've got his arm bone, and we're going to build a church and bury it here.
It's Aunt Gertrude's arm bone.
Yeah, it's that that's kind of what I think of. Like, I think, again, the whimsy. I love the whimsy. The whimsy of, wow, these incredible, amazing things happen. And the church believed in these incredible, amazing things, and they were so allured and so drawn into the beautiful story of the apostles because they were the ones who walked with Jesus, the Son of God, which is beautiful. Yeah. But also on that gross historical level, people are like, no, freaking, this apostle came all the way out here and then we killed him, or no, he actually planted this church. It's like, then it gets kind of sticky and territorial and weird. So yeah.
Like if your motives are pure for like embracing the legends and traditions, that there's something sweet to that. I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, we also got to remember that their embracing of traditions is why we know the tomb that Jesus rose from, right?
Yeah.
Like, nope, it was here, and we're just going to gather here frequently for hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm. And then when archaeologists show up in like 2,000 years, they'll be like, oh, crap, they were pretty close.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
here's McDowell's conclusion about Simon. So he most likely did. He splits it up into two categories. Did they do mission work, and were they martyred? So Simon most likely did missionary work.
Mm-hmm.
But him being martyred is as likely true as it's not. So 50-50.
Okay. There's a possibility he just died of old age.
Yeah, there is. Well, so one of the big things to think about, like tradition says every one of them was martyred. I've taught this.
Sans John, right?
Yes. That's what tradition says. But
right.
But John also was boiled alive and then he survived it. So, I mean, they tried.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have a little bit of that with our next guy who I chose, not as randomly, but I chose our friend Matthew from the opposite end. ATF Matt.
That's right. The tax man.
Tax man. So what do we know about Matthew, boys? And then I'll fill in the blanks.
Big money guy. Didn't the Chosen give him the tism?
Yep.
Yeah.
But that was a creative choice, not recorded anywhere.
I'm pretty sure the Bible says that he had autism.
Oh, okay. Is that in I was gonna say 1 John, but that is a thing. I don't know. First King John, that's in King John 1.
Yeah, there's a ton of Johns.
That would be a John move. Like he's just writing a really nice letter, and then it ends. He's just like, also Matthew had autism, and then like,
because he just throws people under the bus.
Yeah. I beat Peter in that race, and Matthew was super far behind because he had autism.
Yeah,
dude, Johns are out here, bro. I love it.
There's lurking. Yes. You guys know John's or not John's, Matthew's original name? Huh?
No.
Levi.
Oh, okay.
So Jesus gave him the new name, right? Jesus gave him the new name Matthew, and then he wrote the Gospel of Matthew. Mm-hmm. But we also know very little about him, despite... This is what's fascinating to me as I was sitting there thinking about this, writing this episode out. Millions of people read... What are you giggling at? I'm just in a giggly mood. Now I have to check... Again. Now I have to check chat. What is... Oh, okay.
Don't worry about it, big dog. It's all good.
Okay.
I was making fun of John, not you, by the way, okay? Carry on. Just carry on.
I wasn't.
You're just being high schoolers, man.
You really are.
Our high school days.
That's okay.
All right, let's rock it.
So think about this, lads. Matthew is read by millions of people across thousands of languages every day all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then we don't know anything about him, really.
Humble guy.
Yeah. Now here's this is so funny. This goes in line with somewhat of your comment. So Clement of Alexandria wrote in the Pedagogus, this is chapter 2. Accordingly, the Apostle Matthew partook of seeds and nuts and vegetables without flesh. Clement's just like...
Thanks, Clement.
Yeah, Matthew was a vegetarian, actually. So we're,
actually, something that just occurred to me. Taylor, you let me know if you feel like this is real from just the research you've been doing, but it seems like there's like this inversion that happens with a lot of the disciples where like their status or their desire for status in life like has an inverting effect in like how much we know about them after they become a disciple of Jesus. So like the zealot, the tax collector, who would have been like, prominent, like well known, maybe powerful, are like we don't know a whole lot about him. And it's like the fisherman who like Peter, who is inverted. I guess that's kind of broken with Paul, who's just kind of a big deal his whole life, just in different ways. But I don't know. That was just a random thought that entered my mind.
No, and I like it. It's poetic.
I like that. Yeah.
So, do you guys know the claim for Matthew, the tradition claim that people generally quote?
Wait,
for his martyrdom?
Yes.
No.
Was Matthew? No, that's Andrew who was crucified on the X.
It's my homeland.
Oh,
Ethiopia.
Oh,
Ethiopia.
He did go to Ethiopia. Yeah.
So tradition claims Matthew was killed by the sword in Ethiopia, specifically for rebuking the king for lusting after his niece. The last part is not in every tradition.
X for doubt.
Yeah, that's not in every tradition, but it's been held that he died by the sword in Ethiopia, as I said, my home country.
I wonder if Ethiopia isn't the leading tradition pushing that narrative.
I know, right?
Like, oh no, we definitely he was here.
He was here. Matthew was here. Okay, so the tradition claims get even more wild. So after he was killed by Hirtakis is the king's name. He rose from the grave.
All right.
Hirtakis commits suicide because...
Yeah, right. Because that's, by the way, listener, that's what you do. If you kill someone and they come back, you're done.
Kill yourself.
Okay,
yeah. So Hirtakis commits suicide. And because of this, the gospel is further promulgated throughout Ethiopia. Okay.
What a crazy day that was for news.
It was, yeah.
This just in.
So I gave you guys the crazy ones first, but let's rip through the kind of the other claims. So we got Eusebius reporting that Matthew first preached to the Hebrews. He planned to travel elsewhere, and it's unclear if those plans refer to Jews in Judea, the diaspora, or both. Jerome says Matthew was in Judea. Socrates, church historian Socrates, reports that Matthew was assigned to go to Ethiopia. All right, there we go.
Okay, all right.
Hippolytus places Matthew's fate in Parthia. Acts of Andrew locates Matthew in Myrmidona. And other traditions place him in Persia and Macedonia.
Okay. What does Sean McDowell say about why there's so many different options here?
Yeah, that he clarifies because so one, you have to realize this book is already ginormous. Just getting into the things that he's researching, he doesn't specifically dive in to why tradition varies so much, except is what we've already talked about, that different people have different stakes for claiming the apostle died where they were like basically where they were.
Right.
Yeah. So
but I guess like if he traveled through an area and he spent a good amount of time there, then people would still. So like it sounds like Matthew was just a very well-traveled guy, and maybe he was killed in Ethiopia, but he had been all over the place, is what it sounds like.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So there's a wide variety of traditions, but the thing is they're all outside this window of, as we talked about, living memory, and so it does make it very difficult to distinguish legend from actual historical fact. So it's likely, as you just said, John Simon, Matthew spent time ministering in Palestine, because that's according to the earliest traditions. But we have Thomas Schmidt in his book, The Apostles After Acts, a sequel. He describes, this is him talking about the Ethiopia-Egypt tradition. So I'm going to read a quote here. This is Schmidt in Apostles After Acts. So the Nile was a convenient highway. There were land and sea routes into Arabia, and there were Jewish settlements throughout the region. Apostles could have traveled south beyond the borders of the empire, just as they more certainly traveled to other compass points. The story of the Ethiopian eunuch supports at least an awareness of the region and perhaps a connection to it through this early convert. Together, these factors support at least the possibility of an apostolic journey far up the Nile. Since Matthew is the only one of the 12 with any traditional connection to the area, and since he is not strongly connected anywhere else, this account designates him the southernmost apostolic missionary.
Okay.
So here's some of the verdicts that we can land on, okay? So the earliest sources are silent on martyrdom, okay? Silent on the martyrdom. So Eusebius nor Jerome are mentioning Matthew's death, but they do refer to the ministry in Palestine. If an early tradition of the martyrdom existed, we don't have it. Okay. Late emergence of martyrdom accounts, they don't appear until the 5th century, so the 400s. And by this time, a lot of different apocryphal traditions were already detached from historical fact.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Did you see anything? Because isn't it also a tradition that Philip made his way back to Ethiopia? Did they work together?
You're going to have to wait till the Philip episode, my friend.
Patience, young Padawan.
I didn't get a chance to read Philip yet.
Okay.
It'd be crazy. It's a thick book. So
Dude, you know what's interesting to me is, like, from what you're saying, the early historians like Eusebius, Jerome, Socrates, like, they did not like this idea. So like all many of us grew up with this idea, and I know I did for certain. Like 11 of the 12 disciples were martyred. Judas, of course, killed himself. Paul was also martyred. The only one that survived was John. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah, John was boiled to death, didn't die, and then they banished him, and he lived in Patmos for forever. But the early church did not have this narrative. Like, the early church did not have this same idea that, oh, of course, all of the disciples were martyred. Like, there were some accounts that were like, yeah, they just ministered and then they died eventually. So it's really interesting that, I don't know, when I think of the early church, I think they had such a healthy, like, that they really loved the idea of martyrdom, but even with that in mind, they were not the ones suggesting that martyrdom happen for all of them.
That is one of the that's like a Bart Ehrman argument.
What would Bart Ehrman say about that?
Exactly what you just said.
Oh no.
so
that because the early church didn't suggest that, then they probably weren't martyred.
Yeah, but it's more complicated than that, and we have to remember Bart Ehrman doesn't. He's going to have a long talk with Jesus before the final judgment.
Jesus, like, have a seat, Bart.
I thought you were going to say something like about like his work, and then you were like, he's going to have a long talk with Jesus.
Jesus will have a whole PowerPoint presentation ready for that guy when his time's up. So,
dude, Stephen Colbert already gave it to him. If you haven't seen that, you need to look up Colbert. Just absolutely.
Oh, really?
Is it Colbert? I think it's Colbert. Yeah, the Colbert stuff is
pretty
hilarious.
serious about being Catholic. So
yeah, Stephen Colbert will every now and then just really flex his Catholic, small group leader abilities and
his Lord of the Ring knowledge.
Airman twice, and then one of them is you can find pretty easily in some.
I gotta watch that. Okay,
I'm adding it right now. That's crazy.
So you got to think that 5th century timeline is when the martyrdom traditions from Matthew start popping up. And you've got, this is like 2 centuries after the end of the period of living memory. So all these conflicting reports on his manner of death. We've got everything from burning, beheading, stabbing. This lack of consensus actually makes this whole thing more problematic. So this is what McDowell says. If agreement existed on his martyrdom, but not the method, a historical core might be possible, but it's just not the case. So we got nothing. So here's early traditions that indicate a natural death. So Hippolytus reporting that Matthew fell asleep in Parthia. And then you have Clement of Alexandria, who also thought Matthew was a vegetarian for some reason. Citing
loved his seeds.
Yeah. So Clement cites Heracleon and affirms that Matthew did not die for publicly proclaiming his faith. But here's the thing, boys. Here's the thing. This is what I would go back in time and tell the people that were trying to make sure that he was martyred. I would say just because he may have died a natural death does not imply a lack of faithfulness.
Mm-hmm.
So Clement keeps it moving that Matthew made the first confession, remaining faithful to Christ throughout his whole life. And this does not contradict Jesus' prediction in Matthew 10:18 that the disciples would basically face trials. Yeah. It's just that Matthew wasn't executed. So here's McDowell's claim, and I do agree with this. Yes, Matthew definitely did missionary work, but he was probably not martyred.
Mm-hmm.
But don't you guys want that whole comes back to life and the king kills himself in disgrace story to be true?
Well, it's not just that I want it, it's that I believe it.
That's your takeaway from all this?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Whimsy, bro. Whimsy. We've talked about this.
John Simon, Tommy, is just going to like roll up with the most wild takes. He just finds the most insane story and he's like, yep. I'm just
saying, man. I also think that the Ark of the Covenant is probably still in Ethiopia somewhere, and you, like a goober, just let them
even 5 minutes looking for it.
Not 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh! I trust Dr. G. I tell you, I asked him.
Dr. John, bro.
I asked Dr. G. I said, "Is the Ark of the Covenant here?" And he goes, "Oh, yes. No." I love that guy. I've been missing Ethiopia a little bit, actually.
Aw.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it becomes an annual thing. I don't know. Find out. Find out on next week. Anyway, so I think next episode, I'm going to try to get 3 or 4 apostles in for the next Taylor drop and see what we can do. I don't want to be stuck on this forever, but we're really filling out 1st and 2nd century here. We're doing a good job.
Maybe Matthew went to Ethiopia and ate injera. And he just loved it so much that he died in a state of bliss.
See, I thought you were going to go with the racist deal and be like, he didn't cheer. It was so bad he died. Taylor's right. I love hamburgers.
Wait, why
It's
is
mac
that
and
racist?
cheese.
Why is it racist to not like injera?
I
Good
don't
question,
know.
Taylor.
Why don't you ask Injera? Because that's just
I don't wanna-
disrespect. The whole country eats the food, Taylor. The whole country.
Yeah, okay. Well, I love the country, but not injera. I like the stuff they put on top of it.
Yeah.
I don't want this to keep being a thing. Like, even we got a comment that was like, what was
Yeah, I
the
wouldn't
comment
eat
making
either.
fun of me?
No, he wasn't making fun of you. He was agreeing with you. He was like, yeah, sounds gross, Taylor.
I don't want to eat soapy bread.
Yeah, terrible,
Tommy, I need you to go to an Ethiopian restaurant and try injera and just tell me, like, honest to God, what you thought.
I mean,
John and I are going to go, and we're going to do a live stream on the CH4C Instagram of us eating injera.
Dude, okay, first off, you don't just eat injera. Like, you eat it with, like, other stuff. But yeah, it's good. You can eat it with, like, lentils and, spicy chicken. And
Steak,
it's really good.
lamb, goat. They, like, do it all well.
They do it all.
Yeah. And you know what I ordered?
Is it kind of like naan? How you like use naan with like Indian food?
No, it is nothing.
Chill out, bro. My
this is
gosh.
because this is
He's
what
so
people.
hostile.
This is what I'm trying to explain to people when they're like, "Oh, how do you not like one type of bread?" Because it's like not even bread.
It's really not. It is kind of like an alien bread. A little bit. But it's spongy. It's squishy. I don't know.
And like fermented and sour.
Kind of like sourdough bread.
No,
You monster. No, it's literally the same. Sourdough bread is also fermented.
Kombucha.
I hate kombucha, bro. I really do.
Oh, but
I
you
don't
like injera?
kombucha.
Oh, okay.
Okay, pal.
Anyway, next time I'm in Arizona, I would love to meet up with you guys.
That's not even true, because aren't you literally coming in like a week and you told us nothing about it?
I don't have time. It's a quick turnaround.
Oh my god,
freaking
dude.
liar!
I literally
see.
okay.
This is the stuff he says when he's recording, listeners, and then when we get off the mic, he's like, "Later, losers," flips us off, then hangs up.
Look, do you want to know the schedule? Brandy and I will leave work at 5, drive to Tucson, fall asleep
at 5
p.m., drive to Tucson, wake up, get dressed, go to a wedding, leave the wedding, drive back, and then I will lead worship at church that Sunday. Where do you suggest that I find time for Ethiopian food with you two clowns?
Breakfast.
Yeah, dude. What a better way to wake up.
I'm already getting breakfast with my mommy and daddy.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, you're making time for somebody. Wow. That's great.
Whatever.
Yeah. No, I get it, man. They're probably still paying your phone bill, so gotta pay your dividends.
Well, I was gonna say I'll allow it because apparently Mr. Treadway is a big fan of the show. So
and Mrs. Treadway.
Really? Oh, wow. Should we do a shout out?
Thank you. Shout out Mrs. Treadway.
Yeah, my parents. They've never watched this show. I don't think they've done anything. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it makes me kind of sad.
Dude, I love John's dad so much, but there ain't no way he listens to this show.
I don't think my dad. If I told my dad, you have one job: find a podcast and listen to it.
Yeah, dude, your dad does not listen to any podcast.
Is he picking Jake Paul?
I don't think he'd know what to do. My dad, yeah, he'd have podcast Googled into Yahoo Mail search about
he's
5 times.
He's like, son, I listen to Impulsive, but not Church.
Yeah. So here's why my parents like it, because I'm like the perfect little blend of my parents. My dad, the Sunday school, lifelong Sunday school teacher, right? Mm-hmm. So I got the church side, and then my mom is a big history gal. So,
I thought you were going to say your mom's really angry.
Yeah, my mom's Presbyterian.
Is she really?
Wait, is she?
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh man,
that's crazy. Man.
Yeah, what if the plot twist at the century was Taylor was baptized as a baby?
Dude, you can tell us.
I don't think any of us were baptized as babies. How old were you when you were baptized, Taylor?
I was in the 4th grade, and then I wanted to get baptized again when I was like 17 and started to understand more, and I did it, and I regret it. One baptism for the remission of sins.
Amen.
I have a very similar story. I got baptized in 5th grade, and then I got baptized again. But this was like my church. Jordan. No, I didn't do like a celebrity baptism.
Thank God.
No, I went to one of those churches that basically says that if you got baptized before your profession of faith, but it was weird because like I was a believer when I was younger. I just didn't really understand the gospel that well. And so this church that I went to in college was like, yeah, that doesn't count. That's not a real profession of faith. So you need to get baptized again. It wasn't quite that blunt, but they were basically like, yeah, let's get back in the water, big dog.
Dude, I know what tradition that was, and I'm just keeping my mouth zipped tight right now. I don't want to make so many of our listeners mad.
Just getting a little California love in this podcast, you know what I'm saying? So,
there's your hand.
But yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm bummed, and I've actually told other Christians who have been like, yeah, you know, I got baptized a long time ago. I walked away from the Lord. I came back. I really want to show God I'm serious. I want to get baptized again. And I'm just like, dude, like, it worked.
Dude, that's like exactly what I teach.
God is still faithful.
I would teach my youth kids. I would teach my youth kids that. I would say, if you got baptized as a little one and you still want to get baptized as a grown up, what does that imply about the first baptism? It means it worked.
His grip is still steady on you, young one. Yeah.
I won't clown on you, but I had an interesting conversation just yesterday in counseling setting where someone was asking me, they had like a period of waywardness, and they were asking if they should be rebaptized, and they were talking about, they brought up the prodigal son. Mm-hmm. And I told them this is the Holy Spirit here, because nobody had ever brought up that parable in relation to the question of being baptized again. And I pointed out to them, I said, the cool thing about the story of the prodigal son is that there was never a moment where he wasn't the son of the father. Even in the lowest of lows, he was still a son. He didn't need to go through some ceremony to become a son again.
Yep. Yeah, dude, I remember probably in high school, maybe earlier than that, but I just remember like vividly having this image of my relationship with God throughout my life, as if like God had performed like heart surgery and placed this like big magnet inside my heart where like no matter how far I went, I was always going to be drawn back to him. And I've always had that image of like God is just this overwhelmingly attractive figure, and I just can't get away, but it's also good for me. But yeah, I think that's beautiful. I love that.
That's so good. I always taught my youths that God's like a giant campfire in like a frozen forest. And
you're a moth.
And well, no, you're a person in this analogy. You're a person, and if you wander away, you're gonna get really cold, and like you will go back to the fire to warm up, and it's always there. It's always burning, always welcoming, ready for you. Anyway,
I like that. Everyone goes back to the campfire.
That's right. I like to think of Jesus in a tuxedo T-shirt. Because it says I'm formal, but I'm ready to party.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning in to Church History for Chumps.
Is that a dated reference at this point?
Like a youth pastor who wears the tuxedo shirt. Is that what that is?
No, it's like Talladega Nights.
I was just thinking that was Talladega Nights. Yeah.
When they're doing the prayer and the kids are like, I think of Jesus as a ninja fighting off the evil samurai.
Shut up, Chip.
Oh man, I had a question that I wanted to ask you guys, but then I was like, no, we'll save it for another episode. We're already getting close to the end. All right, that was good.
Yeah, send us fan mail.
Yeah, or follow us, rate us. Somebody rate bombed us, bro. We're down to 4.9. I don't feel like that's a fair reflection of our show's quality.
It's still so high. It's so high.
I'm honestly appalled. I couldn't sleep at all that night, bro. I was like, 4.9? What am I? Some Aryan podcast?
I blame, you ready? Here's a throwback. I blame Ben.jpg. I think that guy got married and he's like, you know what? I don't need Church History for Chumps no more. And he hit us with a 4.5 star.
I bet he did. Ben Watson, if you're listening to this, we miss you, bro. And so the church that I preached at 3 weeks ago, there was this like young college age gal who I guess was the daughter of one of the families there. And she was like, hey, so nothing about your sermon, but I go to this church up in Phoenix and I know this guy and he really likes your podcast. And
was it Ben?
It's his name, Ben Watson. And she's like, yeah.
Dude, keep it up, Ben.
I was like, that's so funny, dude.
Tell your friends.
Shout out to Ben. Yeah.
Blow this up. Blow this podcast up.
Yeah, but hey, right now we're going to go blow up, going to sleep because it's almost 11.
You say I'm gonna go blow up the toilet.
No one's ever said that before. That was a new sentence in history.
Yeah, brand new /brand new sentence.
I'm gonna blow up this comforter right now.
Ew. I hope Annie's not in it. Okay, cut the tape.
Yes.